Hello and welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is Dan and I'm here to bring you another FPL video. In this one, we're going to be looking at my team selection ahead of game week 3. I've got 2 free transfers moving into this game week and looking forward to sharing my plans with you, as well as the captaincy data to look at a possible differential captain, or of course the man himself, Erling Haaland. We'll also be looking at a brief review of how I got on in game week 2. So hopefully you enjoy it. If you do, please remember to hit that thumbs up. But let's have a look at how I got on in game week 2. So 45 points all out. Really not impressed with that, to be honest. Current rank is now 2.4 million. So pretty phenomenal red arrow for me again. But this early on, guys, if you're similar rank or you've had a difficulty in terms of your start, don't worry. At this point, there's literally 20-30 points difference between 250k and 3 million. So this is easily recoverable with chips later in the season when we start looking at our first wild cards and, of course, using our transfers wisely in the coming week. So I really don't want to read too much into rank at this stage. Of course, in terms of the positives and the negatives, we'll start with the negatives. Gabriel, again, with 1 point cameo appearance against Crystal Palace, meaning that he is really on the radar to be shipped out for me. I'm more than likely going to be benching him in game week 3, even if he gets the start and Arteta trolls me with him starting. I really can't take the risk with it. I think I'm just going to be playing Udogie ahead of him moving forward. He already blocked those additional 4 points in terms of an auto sub after Tomiyasu got that very, very light red card. And it just meant essentially, again, that cameo appearance blocking the auto sub. And of course, he's now dropped in value as well from 5 to 4.9 million. So I haven't shipped him out in time. I think my plans with him is to just wait a few weeks, maybe free up some money in some other areas of the pitch, and maybe make a move for somebody like Kieran Trippier and try and get ahead of the pack a little bit in terms of shifting that money around, as I think the 6.5 million price point of Trippier is going to be quite difficult for certain individuals to get to. And Newcastle's fixtures from game week 5 onwards look like an area I want to target. So I am thinking that far ahead with Gabriel as a replacement. I really don't need the money immediately to do the other moves that I'm interested in. So I felt like that was probably the best option. So in terms of the other negatives, of course, the other midfielders other than Matoma here, blanking pretty much. So not really anything to note. They're pretty disappointing all round. Captaincy for Haaland as well, meaning another blank there. So really, the 45 points only came from those 2 Brighton boys in Estepinian and Matoma. Fantastic showing from them both. Of course, Ollie Watkins is a kind of 50-50 decision as well now. He's got a strong Burnley fixture away next game week, and he has ticked away quite nicely with those 10 points across 2 game weeks. But I think maybe we need to open up different options for our team moving forward. So he's also on the possible chopping block for me. So that transitions us quite nicely into the transfer plans then, and what I've already done so far. So we'll talk about the one I've already made first, which is Martinelli to Phil Foden. He's already signed for the squad, and essentially it's maybe on paper it looks a little bit controversial because Martinelli has a very good fixture. He plays for a very good team and is a very good player, right? He definitely has the potential to go into that double-digit territory, but I just wasn't convinced with him in the Palace game, and maybe it is a bit knee-jerky. But ultimately, I had a look at the data and I decided that I'd seen enough of Martinelli for now. I think if Gabriel Jesus returns, or when he returns, then maybe Martinelli becomes an option again. But as far as Nketiah playing in that number 9 position, they just don't link up as regularly as the 2 Brazilians do. So I think making the move early, it's maybe a little bit aggressive, but I put myself into this position where I had 2 free transfers. My squad looked really, really strong for game week 3. So there was no real kind of headaches for me to deal with other than Gabriel. And I felt like a defensive transfer was not attacking these fixtures enough. So Martinelli to Foden is really about what I consider a better fixture on paper, and just somebody that to the short term, at least until the European fixtures kick in, somebody I feel like I can trust more than Martinelli, as well as freeing up those all-important funds to maybe move towards a Gabriel to Trippier move later down the line. So don't want to just sit here and justify my moves throughout the whole video, but I think that's why I've made that move, and hopefully that makes sense. With Watkins to Jackson, that is something I haven't done yet, but it is something I'm strongly considering. Again, I've now got 1 million in the bank, which isn't enough to reach that Trippier price point, so I would maybe need to tweak again. And really, it's only Alvarez and Jackson that are kind of springing out to me as possible options in that second striker slot. And the reality is, if I've got Phil Foden in the team, maybe I shouldn't think this way, but ultimately I don't want 3 City attackers. I think that as we approach Europe, I'm giving myself essentially future headaches that I don't want to deal with if there's ever rotation that comes into play. Whereas I look at Jackson and I see consistency across a really set of positive fixtures, and he's not really got anyone in contention with him at the moment. Yes, Brozier's just returned to training, but I don't think Pochettino's going to throw him into the mix, at least until a couple of weeks. So really, as that number 9 slot for him, I think that these next 3 fixtures as a minimum are very, very positive on paper for him. So I think this is going to be my second move. But let me know in the comments below what your plans are and what you've already done, as I'd love to hear what you've got planned or what you've done already. Of course, the captaincy data next up then. This is a table, if you're new to the channel or new to this series of video, this is a table I put together where we look at a set of players that I think are going to be popular choices or possible differential ones at least. We have a look at their average heat map position on the pitch, essentially, or where they position themselves. You then have the opponent's chances conceded in the previous game week. So Jackson is facing Luton Town. Luton in game week 1, as they blanked in game week 2, they conceded 5 chances in the central area of the pitch. And essentially, I just use this data table as a possible identifier, really, to find either the best captain or just start talking about differential captains. So hopefully that makes sense. So with Jackson operating in that central position, I do think he does warrant a possible differential shout. Of course, only scoring 2 FPL points so far. We have seen some very positive XGI numbers from him in the background. He just hasn't been able to convert anything yet. So I do think there are goals and points coming for him. And as a differential captain, I wouldn't be surprised if he does well this game week. As we talk about Chelsea then, we can also move to Ben Chilwell as a possible option. Now, I put that he operates on the left-hand side, but I have seen from an eye test in the heat map that he's actually almost a central second striker at times with Jackson. So, you know, you could almost argue that it's left and central. But on the left-hand side, Luton Town in their first game week conceded 13 chances. And that is such a standout statistic in terms of one game week's worth of data, because when you look at all the others, it's all 5. It's all just a very average number. But Luton looks like it's ripe for the taking for Ben Chilwell. And if you really want to get spicy and maybe get ahead of the pack a little bit, I think him as a captaincy shout, if they keep that clean sheet, he could be on for a good 14, 15 pointer this game week, guys, to be honest. And I think it could be massive for him. That being said, there are, of course, the City boys under contention here as well. They've got Sheffield United away. Both Haaland and Foden operating more in the central areas than anywhere else. Of course, in the last game week, that meant Sheffield United conceding 5 chances through the middle. I think both of these are equally warranted, I guess, as a captaincy shout for this week. I think Haaland on penalties, though, would edge it for me. And just his finishing power overall is just that little bit better and more prolific than Phil Foden's. And finally, Bukayo Saka, guys. I think, you know, we can't ignore this man, even if it looks like he's potentially off penalties. I personally think he's going to be rotating with Ødegaard as opposed to just completely being off them. His record isn't amazing, isn't impeccable. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the captain is just taking the responsibility moving forward. But I still think Saka is a short-term own. And I think when you look at the chances conceded by Fulham on that right-hand side, that is the weakest area of their defensive capabilities. In the centre and the left-hand side, they seem to be able to deal with it a little bit better. But on that right-hand side, that just seems to be where they're a little bit more exposed. So Saka, again, as a differential shout, scoring 13 FPL points across these few game weeks is certainly also another differential shout. So my personal choice is going to be Erling Haaland. Of course, I think it goes without saying that, of course, we know that he can blank. There are absolutely, you know, opportunities to be able to go different, and that's why Salah as that kind of game week 2 captaincy option was so important to Salah owners. But I genuinely think that we can't look beyond him when he's just got a newly promoted side. Even if it's an away fixture, I think he could go massive, even if he only plays 45 minutes. This is a hat-trick territory once again for the Viking, and I honestly think I can't look beyond him. Then as we move into the lineup for game week 3, then we start off with our goalkeeper and defence. So let's talk about the 3 defenders first. We have got Udogie coming in for Gabriel. I'm not willing to take the chance and start Gabriel for the 3rd time in a row, only to be essentially given a 1-point cameo appearance and potentially the clean sheet at best. I really don't want to take the risk this time. I think Udogie had a really strong showing against United in the last game week, and against Bournemouth away, I really think that he could get not only attacking returns, but of course that defensive prowess as well for Spurs could come into fruition. So looking forward to owning him for the first game week in my starting 11. Of course, Ben Chilwell, as mentioned in the captaincy data, I think this is a week where he could go huge. I think this could be double-digit territory, could be, 14, 15 points. Really looking forward to seeing what he can do here against Luton. We then have Estepinian against West Ham at home. Maybe on paper a little bit of a trickier fixture. Shouldn't have put this maybe as the easiest fixture, but I think at Brighton at home, it's a strong outing for them. I think they can do really, really well against this West Ham side. And Estepinian's numbers are just absolutely outstanding, not just from of course, the clean sheet potential, but those attacking outputs and attacking potential for him is so huge. He's like an additional midfielder for us. So offering fantastic value at only £5 million. Then we look at Jordan Pickford, probably my biggest mistake of game week 1, I think. 4.5 million goalkeepers were a little bit few and far between. We had Fleckham, we had Leno, we had some options to go with. Sam Johnson of Crystal Palace, but I felt like Everton had the stronger fixtures to rotate with Turner of Nottingham Forest, but it just wasn't to be last game week. Of course, he scored 0 points on my bench against Villa, 4-0. That's a real hammering blow for them. I think they really need to shape up and start improving their defensive capabilities quicker rather than later, because he's got to be on the chopping block. If not, I mean, I do try to hold on to goalkeepers at least until the first wild card usually, but I'm just not sure I can do it. He looked absolutely woeful. Everton looked woeful at the back as well. So unless we see some improvement in the next few weeks, then he's a potential move on as well. So definitely one of my biggest mistakes for game week 1. We then have a look at the midfield then, and as mentioned, Foden does come in for Martinelli. Maybe a little bit of a sideways move, but I'm really hoping we get the upside of that Sheffield United fixture over the Fulham one. I think, again, Martinelli, there's nothing wrong with him as an individual. I think he's an outstanding player. I just think that without Jesus in the team, he does suffer a little bit in terms of output, and I'm really looking forward to having Foden in my team, at least for those first few weeks. Of course, with Rashford and Fernandes, we did talk about it in the buy, sell and track video I put out earlier this week. These two are definitely individuals I want to be tracking for the negative reasons, essentially, to see if I want to keep them longer term. I think Rashford's probably the obvious one to downgrade as a potential, Rashford to Mbeumo move could happen for sure next week. If he doesn't perform this week, we've got Arsenal away and then Brighton at home in game weeks 4 and 5. So I don't think I could warrant spending £9 million on an individual that's just not performing. So let's wait and see with him. I'm hoping Ten Hag plays him on the left and we get an improvement out of him, but let's see. Of course, Saka, maybe he is off penalties. I don't know. As mentioned in the captaincy section, Ødegaard and him could potentially rotate a little bit, which is why we've seen him take one. But who knows? It's just too little data at the moment to really understand it. But even then, even if he's off penalties, his open play threat is still absolutely massive. We know what he can do with that left foot when he cuts inside. He's an absolutely fantastic talent, and I'm very happy to still own him in the medium term. So maybe one to watch as a possible wild card option out later in the season. And then finally, we look at my two frontline then, and it is Haaland and Nicholas Jackson if I make that move. At the moment, it is still Ollie Watkins in the squad against Burnley. But if I do make that move to Jackson, then as you can see below, I would have 2 million in the bank with a squad value of 98.6 million. So that 2 million could come in really handy, as mentioned, when I'm looking at a possible move from Gabriel to Trippier. That could be a really important decision if I downgrade Watkins this early on to the likes of Jackson. So that's where my thought process is at. And then finally, we can talk about captaincy and vice captaincy. I have got it on Haaland and Foden at this moment. I don't expect Haaland to miss this game in any way, though. So vice captaincy probably doesn't come into play. But if it does, I want to make sure that I'm all over another City attacker for this very important Sheffield United fixture. Of course, on the bench, as mentioned, I have got Gabriel there as the first bench option. Again, if Arteta trolls us and he does start him for the first time in 3 weeks, so be it. I'm more than happy of having Udogie in the starting lineup against Bournemouth away. Of course, Archer and Kabore, not really going to be warranted any positions in this starting 11. And of course, Turner does have that difficult Old Trafford fixture against Manchester United. Therefore, Pickford against Wolves gets the nod. So there we go, guys. That's how I'm shaping up. Let's move into some other community-focused content now then, guys. We've got the Prize Mini League. Of course, the top 10 really heating up now. We've got some really long-term viewers and supporters of the channel, which is good to see. We've got Chatstop in that second place, 74 points last week and 157 overall. Very strong start for you, sir, so congrats to you. We've got Shawnee in that top spot, 67 points last week, 160 points overall already, so really strong outing for you. Jan Aigner, the previous winner of last season's, already at last season's league, already up there in 3rd place. Well done to you. Abdullah as well. Shout out to you, bud. 4th place. City fan, having Alvarez, Foden in your team. Some really fantastic options that you've started off with. But yeah, congrats to the top 10 so far. Again, I will be tracking this in all my future team selection videos and giving you guys shout outs. So feel free to join this mini league using the code here. It's only open game week 1 to 5 for the prize league, and then the kind of for fun, almost bragging rights league is going to be open all season on screen here. There are some direct links, I believe, as well in the video description. We've then got another bit of a kind of news, I suppose, is that I do have a launched Discord server now. You can see on screen here, there's a couple of screenshot examples of some of the automation that's there from the FPL bot. You can do a few different things by checking player statistics. You can see when new players have signed or made moves within the transfer market. You can see lineups when they're announced. There's all sorts of things there, and it's completely free to join. It's just essentially to keep growing the community and to talk amongst each other. So feel free to join me over on there. I have got a link in the description of the video as well for you to join. But that's going to wrap up the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching as always. Remember to hit that thumbs up if you did get any value out of this video or enjoyed the content. Of course, if you want to see more of me this season, then do hit that subscribe button below. But until then, guys, I will be putting a live stream out on Friday, so hopefully see you there. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.